There's a strange thing that happens when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending your choices, justifying your silence, proving your worth to people who never truly saw you. Something shifts. The air changes. Those who once dismissed you suddenly become curious. Those who took you for granted start questioning. And you finally stop performing. You stop exhausting yourself in translation, because the rarest power isn't in being understood. It's in no longer needing to be. There's a strange thing that happens when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending your choices, justifying your silence, proving your worth to people who never truly saw you. Something shifts. The air changes. Those who once dismissed you suddenly become curious. Those who took you for granted start questioning. And you finally stop performing. You stop exhausting yourself in translation, because the rarest power isn't in being understood. It's in no longer needing to be. Now think about this. How much of your energy have you spent trying to make yourself digestible? How many times have you dimmed your complexity so others could feel comfortable? You've been translating your soul into smaller words, shrinking your truth into bite-sized pieces, hoping someone would finally get it. But here's what no one tells you. The exhaustion you feel isn't from being misunderstood. It's from the constant effort of trying to be understood by people who aren't even listening. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how can you become anything authentic when you're still performing for an audience that doesn't deserve a front row seat to your inner world? When you're still auditioning for approval from people who only valued you when you were useful, compliant, easy to decode? This video isn't about becoming cold or closed off. It's about something far more profound. It's about reclaiming the sacred right to remain untranslated, to exist in your full complexity without apology, without exhausting yourself in explanation. Because the moment you stop trying to be understood by everyone, you finally become visible to the right ones. You've been tired for so long you've forgotten what it feels like to be full. Not physically tired, though that's there too, but that deep, bone-level exhaustion that comes from constantly translating yourself into a language others can understand. You wake up already depleted because even your dreams have become a place where you're explaining, justifying, making yourself smaller so others can grasp you. And here's the cruelest part. The more you explain, the less they actually see you. Because explanation isn't connection. It's a defense mechanism. It's what you do when you don't trust that your existence alone is enough. When you believe that if you just find the right words, the perfect analogy, the clearest expression, finally, they'll understand. Finally, they'll stop questioning you. Finally, you'll be allowed to exist without interrogation. But it doesn't work that way. The people who require constant explanation from you aren't trying to understand you. They're trying to control you. Because as long as you're explaining, you're still in the dynamic. You're still proving. You're still seeking their approval, their validation, their permission to be complex. Jung understood this deeply when he spoke about the persona, that mask we wear to be acceptable to the collective. But what he saw, what most people miss, is that the persona isn't just about presenting a false self. It's about the exhausting labor of translation, of taking your intricate, multi-dimensional inner world and flattening it into something the collective can consume without discomfort. You've been doing this your entire life. In your family, you learned which parts of you were acceptable and which needed to be hidden. In your relationships, you discovered which emotions were allowed and which made people uncomfortable. In your friendships, you figured out how much depth was tolerable before people started pulling away, calling you intense, too much, too sensitive. So you learned to dose yourself, to give people diluted versions of your truth, to laugh when you wanted to scream, to say it's fine when everything inside you was breaking, to pretend you didn't notice the patterns, the inconsistencies, the ways people only showed up for you when it was convenient for them. And the worst part? You became so good at translation that you started to lose the original language. You began to forget what you actually felt underneath all the performance. Your intuition, that deep knowing that used to guide you, became buried under layers of should and supposed to and what will they think? But your body remembers. That's why you're so tired. That's why no amount of sleep feels like enough. That's why you can be surrounded by people and still feel profoundly alone. Because you're not actually with anyone. You're with the version of yourself you've created for their comfort. And that version? She's exhausted. There comes a moment in every awakening when you realize that being understood by the wrong people is actually more painful than being misunderstood by them. Because understanding from someone who doesn't have the capacity to hold your depth isn't understanding at all. It's just another form of reduction. Now here's where it gets interesting. What if you stopped? What if you simply refused to translate anymore? Not out of bitterness or revenge, but out of a deep respect for your own complexity. What if you allowed yourself to exist in your full, untranslated form and let people make of it what they will? This is what Jung meant by individuation. The process of becoming whole, of integrating all the parts of yourself that you've been taught to separate, hide, or explain away. But individuation requires something most people aren't willing to give. It requires you to stop seeking understanding from those who don't have eyes to see you. And this is terrifying. Because we're taught from childhood that being understood equals being loved. That if you're not understood, you're somehow failing at being human. So you keep trying, keep explaining, keep shrinking yourself into more palatable forms. But what if that entire premise is backwards? What if the people who truly matter don't need your explanation? What if they simply feel you, recognize you, meet you in that wordless space where souls actually connect? And what if everyone else, everyone who requires you to perform, to prove, to justify your existence, what if they were never your people to begin with? There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes with depth. Jung knew this. He spent years misunderstood by his colleagues, dismissed by the mainstream, walking a path that made sense to very few. But he didn't exhaust himself in explanation. He simply continued his work, trusting that those with the capacity to understand would eventually find it. And they did. You're at that crossroads now. You can continue exhausting yourself trying to make shallow people understand deep things, or you can make a different choice. You can choose to honor your complexity by no longer apologizing for it, by no longer translating it, by no longer making it convenient for others to consume. This doesn't mean you become closed off. It means you become selective, discerning. You save your depths for those who have earned access to them, for those who don't approach you with interrogation but with reverence, with curiosity, with the humility to say, I don't fully understand you, but I want to honor what I sense in you. Because here's the truth that will set you free. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be fully known by a precious few. And the exhaustion you feel? It's your soul begging you to stop casting pearls before those who will never recognize their value. If this is resonating, subscribe to this channel. You're here for a reason. Something remarkable happens the moment you stop explaining yourself. A clarity emerges, not about them, but about who they've always been. Because your constant explanation was actually a smoke screen. It was hiding the truth of the dynamic from you. When you stop translating, when you stop shrinking, when you stop performing, suddenly you see it. How transactional the relationship was. How conditional the love. How much of the connection depended on you being a certain way, meeting certain needs, filling certain voids in their life. The people who truly valued you, they don't change when you stop explaining. They might be confused for a moment, might ask what's different, but they adjust. They meet you where you are, because their connection to you was never dependent on your performance. It was based on something real, something that doesn't require constant maintenance and translation. But the others, the ones who needed you to be smaller, easier, less complex, they panic. They accuse you of changing, of becoming difficult, of being too much or not enough. They try to provoke you back into explanation, back into the old dynamic where you were constantly proving yourself. Because your silence, your refusal to engage in that dance anymore, it threatens their entire relationship with you. And this is where you discover something crucial. Their discomfort with your untranslated self reveals how little they actually knew you. How much of what they loved was the performance, not the person. How much of what they valued was your service to their needs, not the essence of who you are. Jung called this shadow projection. They're not seeing you. They're seeing their own unintegrated parts reflected back at them. And when you stop playing the role they've assigned you, when you stop being the screen for their projections, they're forced to confront something in themselves they've been avoiding. And most people will choose to blame you rather than face that mirror. This is why transformation is so lonely. Not because you're meant to be alone forever, but because the space between who you were and who you're becoming is a solitary journey. You have to walk through that territory by yourself. No one can translate it for you. No one can make it easier. And anyone who tries to pull you back into explanation is actually trying to prevent your becoming. So you let them go, not with anger, not with resentment, but with a quiet understanding that they were in your life for a season, and that season has passed. You bless them for the lessons, for showing you exactly how much energy you were wasting on being understood by people who only wanted a character, not a complex human being. And in that release, in that refusal to explain yourself back into their good graces, something sacred happens. You return to yourself. You remember what it feels like to exist without translation, to think thoughts that don't need to be immediately shared or justified, to feel feelings without having to make them palatable for others, to simply be in all your contradiction and complexity and depth without apology. There's a particular kind of power that emerges when you stop explaining yourself. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. It's not trying to prove anything to anyone. It's simply the power of complete self-possession, of being so firmly rooted in your own knowing that external validation becomes irrelevant. This is what Jung meant when he spoke about the self with a capital S. Not the ego, not the persona, but that deep center within you that knows who you are, beyond all roles, all performances, all attempts at translation. The self doesn't need to be understood. It simply is. And when you connect to that place within yourself, when you stop fracturing your energy through constant explanation, something shifts in how others perceive you. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to attract anyone, but because wholeness always attracts. Depth always calls to depth. And those who have the capacity to meet you there will feel it immediately. But here's what you need to understand. This path requires you to be comfortable with being misunderstood by the majority. It requires you to trust that the right people, your true soul family, will recognize you without translation. They'll sense something in you that doesn't need words. A resonance, a frequency, a knowing that bypasses explanation entirely. These are your people, the ones who don't need you to shrink or expand or perform or prove, the ones who meet your silence with their own depth, who understand that the most profound connections happen in that space beyond words, where souls recognize each other without introduction. But to find these people, you have to be willing to lose everyone else. You have to be willing to stand in your full, unexplained complexity and let the ones who can't hold it fall away. And this is where most people turn back, because the fear of being alone, of being too much, of being misunderstood, that fear is stronger than their desire for authentic connection. So they go back to explaining, back to performing, back to exhausting themselves in translation, and they wonder why they never feel truly seen, truly known, truly met. It's because they're still hiding, still protecting others from their fullness, still shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold them. But you're different. You're here because something in you is ready to stop, ready to exist in your untranslated form and trust that it's enough, more than enough, that you're not too much or too intense or too complex. You're exactly right. And the ones who are meant to journey with you will know it the moment they encounter you. Let's talk about what happens to your energy when you're constantly explaining yourself. Every explanation is an energetic transaction. You're taking your vital force, your creative power, your soul essence, and you're distributing it to people who often don't even have the capacity to receive it. It's like trying to pour the ocean into a teacup. The teacup isn't wrong for being a teacup, but you're exhausting yourself trying to make it hold something it was never designed to contain. And in that process, you're depleting yourself. You're giving away energy that should be used for your own becoming, your own creation, your own unfolding. Jung understood that psychic energy is finite. You have a certain amount each day, and how you spend it determines the quality of your life, the depth of your relationships, the authenticity of your path. When you spend most of that energy explaining yourself to people who will never truly understand, you have nothing left for the work that actually matters. The work of becoming whole, the work of integrating your shadow, the work of birthing your truest self into the world. So what would it look like to reclaim that energy? To stop hemorrhaging it through constant explanation and instead direct it toward your own evolution? This is the practical application of everything we've been talking about. This is where philosophy becomes lived experience. First, you have to recognize the pattern. Notice when you're about to explain yourself. Notice the urge to justify, to defend, to make yourself clear. And before you speak, ask yourself one question. Does this person have the capacity to truly hear me? Or am I just repeating myself to someone who's already decided who I am? If it's the latter, stop. Breathe. Choose silence. Not because you're being passive or avoidant, but because you're honoring your energy. You're refusing to cast it where it won't be valued. And in that refusal, you're making a powerful statement to yourself. You're saying my energy matters. My depth matters. And I will not waste it on those who treat it carelessly. Second, you have to get comfortable with being misunderstood. This is non-negotiable. If you need everyone to understand you, you'll spend your entire life in explanation mode. You'll never have time or energy for your actual purpose. So you make peace with it. You accept that most people will only see the surface. And that's okay. That's their journey, not yours. Third, you redirect that reclaimed energy toward what actually nourishes you. Your creative work, your inner development, your meaningful relationships, the people who don't need explanation because they already sense who you are. You pour into those spaces instead, and watch how quickly your life transforms when your energy is no longer scattered but focused, no longer depleted but replenished. This is the alchemy Jung spoke about, the transformation that happens when you stop living for others and start living from your center. When you stop explaining your existence and start embodying it fully. When you stop seeking understanding from the many and instead cultivate depth with the few who truly matter. I won't lie to you. This path is lonely at first. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop performing, when you withdraw your energy from relationships built on your translation, there's a void, a silence, an emptiness that can feel overwhelming. You'll doubt yourself. You'll wonder if you're being too harsh, too selective, too much. You'll be tempted to go back to explain just one more time, to give people one more chance to understand. And sometimes for the right people, that's appropriate. But most of the time, it's just you reverting to old patterns because the discomfort of change is too intense. This is the dark night of the soul that every spiritual tradition speaks about. The moment when you've released what no longer serves you, but haven't yet found what truly does. You're in the void, in the space between, and it's terrifying because you can't go back. But you can't yet see what's ahead. Jung called this the Negredo stage of transformation, the blackening, the dissolution of the old self before the new one can emerge. And it requires you to sit in the discomfort without rushing, to feel it, without running back to explanation, just to feel connected. Again, without betraying your evolution for the temporary comfort of being understood by people who will never truly see you. This is where most people give up. They'd rather return to comfortable misunderstanding than sit in this uncomfortable emergence. They'd rather be exhausted but connected than energized but alone. And I understand that. The pull back toward the familiar is strong, but if you can stay with it, if you can honor this season of solitude, something extraordinary happens. You begin to hear yourself again. Not the translated version, not the performed version, but your actual voice, your actual desires, your actual truth. And it's different than you remembered. Because you've been speaking in translation for so long, you almost forgot what your native language sounds like. And in that remembering, in that return to your untranslated self, you discover something profound. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be fully expressed, fully embodied, fully alive. And there's a massive difference between those two things. Being understood keeps you in relationship with others, but disconnected from yourself. Being fully expressed keeps you in relationship with yourself, and from that place, you attract the rare souls who can meet you there, not because they understand every nuance of who you are, but because they honor the mystery. They respect the complexity. They don't need you translated because they're comfortable with depth. So here's what happens when you finally stop explaining yourself, when you finally honor your complexity by refusing to reduce it, when you finally trust that the right people will find you without translation. You become free. Not free from connection, but free within it. You stop contorting yourself to fit into relationships that require you to be smaller. You stop exhausting yourself trying to make people understand things they don't have the capacity to hold. You stop betraying your own knowing to maintain peace with those who only valued your performance. And in that freedom, you discover who you actually are, not who you've been taught to be, not who others needed you to be, but who you are when no one's watching, when there's no one to perform for, when there's no translation required. This is the individuated self Jung spoke about, the person who has integrated all their parts, who no longer fragments themselves for others' comfort, who exists in wholeness even if that wholeness is misunderstood by the majority. And from this place, from this centered, untranslated presence, you create a life that actually reflects your truth. Your relationships change. You're no longer attracting people who need you to be small, or simple or easy to decode. You're attracting people who are comfortable with depth, with complexity, with mystery. People who don't approach you with demands for explanation, but with genuine curiosity and respect. Your work changes. You're no longer creating from a place of seeking approval or trying to be understood. You're creating from your depths, trusting that what wants to come through you will find its way to the right people, and it does. Because authentic expression always finds its audience. Your inner world changes. You're no longer constantly monitoring yourself, editing yourself, questioning whether you're too much or not enough. You simply are. And in that being, there's a peace that surpasses anything you felt when you were performing, explaining, translating yourself for others' consumption. This is what's waiting for you on the other side of explanation. Not perfection, not constant understanding, but something far more valuable. Self-possession, self-trust, the profound relief of existing in your full complexity, without apology. So I'm asking you now, are you ready to stop explaining yourself? Are you ready to exist in your untranslated form and let people make of it what they will? Are you ready to reclaim your energy from those who will never have the capacity to truly see you? This isn't about becoming hard or closed or bitter. It's about becoming whole. It's about honoring the sacred complexity of who you are by refusing to reduce it anymore. It's about trusting that the loneliness of this path is temporary, but the freedom it brings is permanent. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your evolution. You don't owe anyone access to your depths just because they're curious. You don't owe anyone a translated version of yourself just to make them comfortable. You owe yourself the gift of existing fully, completely, without apology or justification. And when you do, when you finally stop explaining and start simply being, you'll discover something beautiful. The right people don't need your explanation. They feel you. They recognize you. They meet you in that wordless space where true connection happens. And everyone else? They fall away naturally. making room for what's actually meant to be in your life. So write in the comments right now, I choose to remain untranslated. Let's create a community of people who honor their complexity, who refuse to shrink, who understand that being misunderstood by the wrong people is a sign you're finally on the right path. And keep watching. The next video will take you even deeper into this journey of reclaiming your energy and stepping into your full, unexplained power. See you there.